Okay. Thank you for being so patient. I know that you've been waiting a long time. I just have a couple of questions for you. On question number 10, I'm going to read the question and then what your answer was. No matter what you've heard or seen in this case, and no matter what opinions you might have formed, can you put all of that aside and decide this case only on the evidence you receive in court, follow the law, and decide the
Russian
case
name says,
in
ironically,
fair and
Caucasian food is a
impartial
thing
manner?
here, and it's nice. Even more ironic is that
And the
derogatory
answer
slang
was,
term
"I
for
am
Caucasian
sure
is
I will
black.
have to." Okay. Could you explain what you meant by that?
I think I'm just such a law follower that would have to.
Okay, so you would follow the instructions of the court and say, no matter what opinions you might have had of the parties, and no matter what you've heard about this case, you can decide the case only on the evidence presented in court. Okay, thanks.
Not you, Your Honor. You're fine. Make the person speak into the mic.
Say it again.
Oh, yeah, he just wanted you to speak into the microphone.
I said I'm such a rule follower that I believe that I would have to.
And you would.
Yeah.
Mike, the dad Crosby, says Carver and Douglas are 2 hours apart. Hope she became a DNR officer near Carver, or they are either separated or doomed. Killer Combo says she might actually want the Target guy in.
Now, you
I have
stated
friends who
that
manage at
a
Target, and they're
friend
pretty
or
based.
family
It has to do
friend
with picking up the
was
slack.
a victim of a fatal stabbing
Not that
in
one.
Minneapolis, and it was a close friend. Were the police called in connection with that?
Yes,
And what was were you there at the time it happened?
I was not.
Okay. How long ago did it happen?
David Payton, we
At least
peaked
5
at
years
close to,
And did
I think we were at
this friend,
9,900 for
recover
a
from the
bit,
stabbing?
but this has just been a slog.
So he or she is in still very bad physical condition.
No,
Russian name dude is Yevgeny
From stabbing?
Alexandrov. I
Okay.
try to remember it, but I won't.
And did the culprit who did this, was he or she ever found?
Yes.
And what happened to him?
He was found guilty.
Okay. And he went to prison?
Yes.
Okay. What did you have any interactions with police in connection with that stabbing?
No.
Someone is vacuuming
Did
upstairs.
she-
I was like, what is that
was it a
sound?
she?
Yes.
Okay. Did she ever express any dissatisfaction with how the police handled it?
No.
Okay. Did you think that justice was done in that case?
Yes.
Is there anything about that case that makes you think, I really shouldn't sit on this jury at all because it involves someone who died?
I believe that I'll be, listen to the evidence in this case. Every case is different.
Okay. So you can be fair and impartial in this case, even though your friend was murdered, right?
I believe so.
Okay. Can you tell me you can?
Ken?
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh,
One of the questions on the questionnaire was, under our system of justice, a defendant is presumed innocent of the criminal charges against them. Would you be able to follow this principle of law? And you said, if it is required of me. You meant yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you answered the same way about the prosecution having the burden of proving the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And you would be able to follow that principle of law?
Yes.
Okay.
are all these hearings as boring? Jury selection can be. Once the
On
trial
the
proper starts, it
ability
should
to
be more
serve,
interesting.
You indicated that you're a single working person and will need to continue working to support yourself. Like I said before, this case is expected to go until we expect to be finished before Christmas Eve.
See ya, Bainling.
Is that going to prevent you from serving?
The officers that shot Jacob Blake are not on trial. They were specifically not prosecuted by the Kenosha County office.
I do work during the day, so I don't know how that's going to go.
Okay. Oh,
Seriously, just talking to a microphone.
I
Oh, you're talking to a microphone.
hear you.
I work during the day, so if this is
It's
gonna
right
be
in
going
front
on
of you.
during the day, I'd have to get off from work.
Okay. Are you able to get off work for this trial if you were chosen?
Possibly, and I'd have to talk with work. Yeah.
Okay. And you're not self-employed, correct?
No, I'm not.
All right. And you haven't talked to your employer about getting off?
I've
I talk
let
to
them
my
know
employer
that I
about getting off
was
all the time.
summoned for jury duty, but I don't know the outcome yet.
Okay. Well, they were supposed to let you off work for jury duty. Okay. So
They kind of have to let you off. It's kind of a law or whatever.
do you think that's going to be a problem? Or don't you know at this point?
I don't know, but I mean, I think chances are good that I will be able to get off.
Okay.
They have to.
Now,
It's a law.
you indicated I haven't seen very many dead people in response to the question. If you have to look at photographs, graphic
I haven't
photographs,
seen very many dead
photos and
people.
video of a person who
How
has
many
died.
have you seen?
If you're chosen as a juror, I know nobody really likes to see that type of stuff, but would you be able to if you're chosen?
Yes.
Crafty Huragok says BLM is people that
In
use them for
response to the
clout
question,
and
do
for
you want
terrorism
to serve
actors for
as
when
a
their
juror?
political
You said
advocation
you're
benefits
not
them.
sure. Okay. This will be something new for you.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that I've talked to jurors after they've served, and I can tell you without exception, every single juror that I've talked to has told me that they found the experience to be rewarding, that they learned
That's
a
because
lot,
the jurors who didn't
and
find it to
they-
be
they
rewarding
stepped away
didn't talk
from
to
the
you
experience with
because they're
a
trying to
renewed
leave.
respect for our justice system. So I'm trying to tell you that I think you're going to like it. Right? I know it's difficult, it's inconvenient, and you're coming downtown and it takes you away from your normal activities, but are you willing
Really
to
now
serve
says,
if you're
why is she
chosen?
talking like she's trying to seduce the pool boy?
Mr. Gray or Mr. Ying?
Good afternoon, number 11. We have to go by numbers.
If you go by
Can you
numbers,
think of
because you said the
anything that
names of two
you should
jurors,
put
you
in the
dummy.
questionnaire that you didn't think of when you answered the questions a couple months ago? Is there anything we should know about?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And besides the questionnaire, is there anything we should know about your personal life or back life that would be helpful in us determining whether or not you can be a fair and impartial juror on a case such as this? No?
So no.
All right. I'm going to ask a couple questions about your
Mrs. C, I'm
answers
thinking
in the
about it.
questionnaire, and then I'll sit down.
Friday's
before I
going to
do
be
that-
really tough for me.
You understand that because this is a criminal case, the state has the burden of proof. And because they have the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, they get to go first. Are you the type of person that will wait until you hear our case before you come to any conclusions? And can you do that?
Yes.
All
Yeah,
right.
you guys are
Some
saying
of
so
these
Earl
questions
Grey tea comes
seem
from this
simple to
guy.
some people, but
Yeah, he
they have
actually
to be
clips
asked
off
because once in a
pieces
while
of his
they say
hair,
no.
and that's what goes in
I'll
Earl
decide it
Grey
when the
tea.
state
Tea bag.
rests their case. And that wouldn't be fair to Ms. Potter, obviously, would it?
Right.
Now,
Jason Duncan, I don't have an easy way to do an overlay through StreamYard that would have, but I think it's 3
on
jurors so
question
far.
10, page 5, you were asking, I couldn't hear, and maybe Your Honor asked you this, I couldn't hear your response. No matter what you have heard or seen about this case, and no matter what opinions you might have formed, can you put all of that aside and decide the case only on the evidence you receive in court, follow the law, and decide the case in a fair and impartial manner? And your response was, I am sure I will have to. And that really doesn't answer the question. Would you do that? It would be a yes or no in my book.
So I put that just because I am such a rule follower that I if I'm told I have to do something that I
The rule is you have to answer
So the
yes
answer
or
would be
no.
Yes, if you're a rule follower, correct?
yes.
Thank you.
He,
And
he-
you have
the
a-
two that were doxed are
With
not
respect to
taken
the
off of the jury,
military,
though.
Lance Corporal in the Marines. But you don't tell us who that is.
It's my brother.
Okay, is your brother?
Yeah.
And how long has he been in the Marines?
I think he just finished his term. So
Pardon?
he just finished his term.
Is he going to get
Yeah.
reelected into the
And
Marines?
how long that would be?
No, no longer.
All right. Are you close to your brother or do you see him? Or-
He lives here, so I see him, when he's available.
All right. And where does he live, reside?
In Belle Plaine.
Belle Plaine, Minnesota?
Yep.
1998, Margaret says, Judge Schrader ain't looking so bad with his rambling and long silences compared to this judge. My goodness.
And the same question with, under our system of justice, the defendant is presumed innocent of the criminal charges against them. Would you be able to follow this principle of law? And again, you say, if it is required of me, and it will be required of you, and you can do that, correct?
Yes.
Joel, yes, they are under oath during this. Gonfall says
With
he's
respect to the
totally
work, if
biased.
you do get off of the employer
OMG.
pay you,
I'm not sure on that part.
can you afford to be off for a couple weeks if you don't get paid?
Not really.
Your last answer is that you're not sure if you want to serve as a juror. If you are selected, would you serve?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have.
Dobonius Bag of Donuts says, Your Honor, I've been told you're on something called OnlyFans as Love You Long 69. Could you describe the nature of this ASMR content? Call Me Straw says, I went full Celt screaming on the road at how quiet and slow this is. Put some wind in your sails, add some tenor. Dylan Hall says, welcome to ASMR Court. News Now Wyoming says, did he just call him Mr. Rasmussen, doxing the juror? Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Good afternoon, Juror 11. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, gosh, my
Today,
neck.
I have a few follow-up questions I want to ask you about.
I mean, seppuku here.
Uh,
Michael Ito, yes, that is a Dark Angel Space Marine behind me and to my right.
There's a question in the questionnaire about how
There's also
your
an Imperial
community has
Fist and
been
an Ultra
affected by
Smurf.
any of the demonstrations that
Waiting on my white scar.
occurred over the last year or so. Do you recall that question?
Yes.
And do you recall what your answer was? I know you filled this out a while ago, so if you don't have perfect recollection, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't really remember.
Con Geary, photo chat is over $20,000 on his Gifts and Go, and on this show, $2,700 was raised. It still needs to be donated.
Yes.
Yes, this is a prosecutor from the
I need
Chauvin
to go
trial.
Into why? Well, especially at work, because I work in Minneapolis. It's just been questionable, especially in that area.
Do you think that, what did you think about the demonstrations and the protests going on while it was happening?
It was
He's going to walk over the
scary,
defense lawyer. Again,
because I
Earl
live
Grey is legitimately one of the
kind of
highest
in that
regarded
area as
defense
well.
lawyers in the
So it
state,
was,
dealing with many
and
high profile
I heard
cases in criminal
bullets,
defense.
shots from in my house. So it was.
Photo chat's up to
Scary.
30,000. Awesome.
Do you associate those issues with any particular group or people?
I mean, you can't really tell who it was, so you can't say it was one group or another.
How do you think the city and state government responded to all that? What did you think of that?
I feel like it's a little more organized because again, at work, I did see how they handle the situation just right outside our windows, and it seemed like it was handled a little better.
It's easy to see all of that, and for you to see it firsthand and think that there's kind of like a lawlessness going on out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Do you think that would affect your ability to be
Oh,
a
his
juror
goal
in
is
these
30,000. 23,585 raised.
I-
Made you look,
I
apparently.
would like to say that I'm impartial until I get the whole story.
While
'cause
you're
there's
there,
always two
drop him
sides to
$5.
every story.
And so do you think you'd be able to leave your thoughts about that outside of the jury room, outside of the courtroom, and not bring that into how you make decisions in this case?
Yes, I do have to, just listen to what is presented here.
You paused a little, and I want to assure you that we're not judging you on your answers. Right? There's no right or wrong. It's just how you feel. That's
Right.
we do this jury selection because not everybody is right for every case.
Right.
So I just, I want to make sure that your very understandable concerns about your safety and what happened in the past couple of years, you don't connect with what you would be doing here in the courtroom.
Right.
You can keep those two things separate.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
you have to say yes or no.
Yes.
Court reporter's taking everything down. So,
Yeah. That's what's going on.
so there's sort of not like, what's the easiest way to say it? It's not a negative taste left in your mouth from those things that you just can't get rid of and would bring in here.
Right.
There was a question about Ms. Potter and the Brooklyn Center Police Department. And you wrote, "I respect the police and the law." Of course, nothing wrong with that. And it's in the question about anything about Ms. Potter and the Brooklyn Center Police Department that would make it difficult to be fair. And so you wrote, "I respect the police and the law." Can you just describe for us why you wrote that answer there?
I believe that the police do keep order. It does vary upon cases again, but I mean, there are mistakes sometimes, or things happen. But I do believe that police are there to keep order.
And they often do, right?
Right.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible that you can have respect for police and the law?
Roy Murlonos
Still-
says, "You're still at
Yeah,
it.
juror
Strong-willed,
evidence
admirable,
about
really. Furries
police
allowed
officers
to hang
conduct
out and
of
watch? Of course. Promise I'm one of the
Yes.
good ones. Actually regularly get mocked for having
As
faith.
we
Oh,
talk
no.
about,
No. Yes,
the
all are
defendant
welcome
having a
here,
right
but
to
all
a
are
fair
also welcome to be mildly
trial.
ridiculed.
The state's a party to this case too, right?
Right.
The state should have a right to a fair trial as well.
Actually, the state has no right to a fair
So when
trial.
we ask, can you be a fair and impartial juror? We really mean, can you be a fair and impartial juror for both sides?
Yes.
You think you can do that?
Yes.
I think the judge asked you earlier, if a police officer testifies, would you automatically believe them without regard, would you automatically believe them because they're a police officer? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And, I think you part of the group that said no to that. Do you think you can, respect the police and the law?
Respect the
and still
police, no
evaluate an
chance.
officer's testimony like anybody else's?
Yes.
Having respect for the law, as I said, is good. Right? We like that. And part of the law is basing a decision only on what you hear in court. You can do that, right?
Yes.
Joanne Anderson, I think we're still at 3 people.
And so you also answered there's that
Oh,
chart of questions and choices. Do you remember that?
Mhm.
The agree and not agree. kind of
Yes.
thing. And it's a quiz, right? It was a lot to do. And there's a question about whether people give
Don
law
Baca, I
enforcement
don't know if there's
officers
been
the
that
respect
pretrial
they
ruling or
deserve.
not.
And you checked that you somewhat agree.
The judge has a cute
I
voice.
think
Hope she likes
sometimes
Jeopardy.
people, based on their experience, already have.
Can you explain how the state doesn't have a right
to
to a fair trial?
just-
Because the right to the fair
They're-
trial resides in the defense,
respect or don't
in
respect.
the person accused by the state. They're the ones who have the
I feel
right
like
to the fair
people
trial.
are
State just
biased
doesn't.
Sometimes.
I mean, by extension, if you have a
And
fair
that's-
trial, the
that's
other
my
party
answer.
should have a fair trial as well.
And it kind of ties in with, I think,
It's
the
just a weird
probably I already
question.
asked you
It's a weird
a
phrasing.
few minutes ago, right? Is do you feel as a person you can feel that that officers maybe should get more respect than they do in general, but still evaluate fairly and with an open mind, the conduct of a police officer in a case like this?
So
If the state is the defendant, it's not a criminal
I
trial.
won't hold you to it. You can just, if you don't understand the question, I will try to rephrase it. But otherwise, you can answer it however you want.
Okay, can you rephrase it?
I can try, yeah. You may have this feeling that sometimes police officers maybe deserve more respect than they get. Is that a fair way to summarize?
I mean, I think everybody does deserve respect. Maybe not one person more than another, but because they are officers of the law, they should get some respect. Because how else would the law be, I guess, like how would everybody
Oh
abide by the
my
law
God,
if
answer the
nobody respected
question.
police?
And But you think that sort of a general proposition.
Right.
You are willing to keep an open mind about whether any individual police officer acted properly.
Yes.
And do you think it's fair to, to consider whether an officer has acted properly, you as a person?
Yes.
Any individual officer, for instance.
Right.
Just stab my eyes out.
You had a
Why is it so
question about
slow?
because law enforcement officers have such dangerous jobs, it is not right to second guess decisions they make while on duty. And you said you somewhat agree with that. Do you remember?
Yes. I think sometimes you just react.
MD, not
Sometimes it
automatically
might
no.
be a wrong reaction, but mistakes happen. People make mistakes.
Michael
And,
Hickson says, damn, coffee pot's empty
Sometimes
after
the
ASMR
mistakes
judge.
are bigger than other mistakes.
Right.
Sometimes mistakes are actually errors.
I can't actually.
This is improper way here. Going into telling us this case.
So he objected. It said this is improper question on voir dire because he's going into the elements of the case. Very interesting. Again, we've had more objections in the first day of jury questions than we had the entire Rittenhouse trial. No, I'm kidding. But we have had several objections so far. That's why I'm kind of hopeful for the trial. I can't actually read the name of this chat because it contains racial slurs. So sorry, but it says end stream. Chilled Milk says, is he saying jurors' names so the ones he doesn't like can't be selected to serve? No, I don't think so. They still got selected. Those names, those people are on the jury. News Now Wyoming says this juror really wants to be on the jury. He's trying really hard. Would you be afraid of him as an attorney for either side? I don't know. The Target guy. I don't think he ended up getting on. Magatron says, I'm Earl Grey. Hire me if you want to teabag the state. Next. Mithrin Emmer says, Pawpaw Bad Touch here does not give off the best vibes. Just saying. Kind of feels like old geezer from Family Guy. Hey there, little fella. You're looking strong. Mark Gee says in Lady Judge ASMR voice, don't get brazen with me. Pancake Turd says the target manager sounds like a lefty activist trying really hard to sound normal and get on the jury.
Okay, sorry about that. There's a couple of words I want to ask you about that are tied into these questions and answers, and I did that inartfully. I apologize. The question that we're talking about here is it uses the term second guessing, and you answered that you somewhat agree. What did you think the word second guessing meant when you answered the question?
Is 2 alternates a low number in high profile trial? I mean, not really. Rittenhouse trial, they use 0 alternates. Typically, you're going to use 0.
Myself, so I'm sure that with everybody's, when it comes down to a split second decision, you could make that, you have that split second thought, and then you just do with what decision you make at that moment.
Okay. And you use the term mistake, and that's what I was trying to ask you about. But let me ask you this way. In this case, well, with any jury, the judge gives instructions on what the law is. The judge defines the crimes alleged for you. And as a juror, and as a rule follower, you would follow the law that the judge gives you, correct?
Right.
And would you be willing and able to decide the facts of the case as a juror based solely on the judge's law and the facts you hear in court?
Yes.
And these very understandable notions that you have about mistakes and second guessing, would you be able to leave that out of your deliberations as you're working as a juror in this case?
Sure, I object to that. She has a right to her own personal opinion. And she's,
Excuse me.
I object to the
No objections, please. Okay, why don't you ask a different question, Mr. Frank?
So the bottom line, I guess.
Another objection.
Right, is when you serve as a juror, can you fairly and
Donna Baca,
can you fairly
the Rittenhouse
apply
trial originally had
the
8
law the
alternate
judge gives
jurors.
you, and only the
2 of them
evidence
were
you hear in this
removed.
courtroom
That's
to
why we got
arrive at
down to
a decision
18
one way or
total.
another.
But they didn't use any of those alternates, is what I'm saying. How many days has this trial been going? All of them. I was born when this trial had already started.
Bear with me. I just got to check my notes real quickly.
Bear with me. I just got objected to twice, and I don't remember what I'm doing anymore. Ewan Marshall says, well, they might have not given the methodology used. Well, no, they weren't used. The alternates weren't used because the alternates weren't determined until the jury went into the courtroom. I guess you're saying because 2 of the potential jurors were dismissed. So maybe. My God. Mike the Dad Crosby says firearm safety contains nothing about tasers. News Now Wyoming says someone who plays in a grunge band.
Thank you. I will pass the chair.
Someone who plays in a grunge band is afraid of COVID.
Juror
Wow,
number
times have changed.
11, you will be on this jury. We're ready for juror number 14.
You're going to do another one, huh? I mean, you might as well. Wait, juror number 14? This is a guy going to college? The guy who can't attend class because he's going to be... Let him go. You've got a big fucking pool of jurors. What a waste of time.
Okay, hello, number 14. Please take a seat. And you may remove your mask, okay? Just have a couple questions for you. You responded to the questions about ability to serve, and in response to the questions relating to the time span that this is going to take, you said there was a significant hardship or reason why you couldn't, because you'll be going to university during this time. Okay, when do you start school?
I've already started.
Okay, and are you going to school full time?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you go during the day?
Yeah.
Okay, what grade are you in?
I'm a sophomore.
Okay, and so you would be unable to attend your classes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. To be on this jury?
I think so, yes.
Okay, and you're willing to serve?
Yes, I am.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Anya?
All right. Just ask her everything about her choices of campaign. Just keep going on that
Afternoon.
campaign thing.
Good afternoon.
My name is Paul Lang. I'm with Earl Grey, Amanda Montgomery. We represent Officer Potter. And the part of the process is that I got to ask a few questions as well, followed by my colleagues on the state. So the last page of your questionnaire talks about accountability. Do you remember the answer to that question?
No.
I'll read it to you. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
Thank you.
Bullet to Tony. The charges are manslaughter 1 and manslaughter
The question
2.
is, do you
What I
want to
think is
serve
a
on
fair
the
outcome.
jury for this
I don't
case?
think
You
they
said
meet
yes,
the
and
elements,
then,
but I'm willing to see the evidence on it.
There's 2 paragraphs. The second one I want to ask you about. I believe you quote, I believe accountability, fair accountability is important for a just and healthy society. It'd be an honor to participate. I believe in civil service so much that it's probably on my career path. My question is, fair accountability, what do you mean by that?
Accountability as rendered by the fair rule of law.
Well, would it, one of the ways to look at fair accountability as a phrase would be to hold Officer Potter into account and to hold her responsible for what you believe she did. Is that what you were referring to on fair accountability by chance?
Not necessarily.
It's not, tell me, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Not necessarily. It'd be more in reference to understanding the forces at work in regard to that situation. One of them being Officer Potter, but obviously not all of them. And understanding as a society and collective
Strike. Strike.
what led to that scenario.
Immediately strike.
Well, you understand
Just-
that the
Just strike.
the task
This
is a little
person
simpler
talks.
than that. It's really just to
This
see if
talks like a women's
presuming
studies
her
major.
innocence, which you
Strike
can
him.
do, whether there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt
Yes.
of the crimes
Get out.
charged. That's your task
Yes.
essentially. And so the sociology of
Okay.
all of this
Activism
is of
talk.
great
No
interest
thanks.
to you and to the rest of us, but it really is not why we're here.
Of course.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
When she
But
said the
nonetheless, there's a
power
context for
structures
the
at
case,
work,
and
I
you've
was
written
like,
quite a bit about it in here. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
All right. So I want to ask you a couple of questions about what you've written. Fair enough?
Yes.
Psych. Nowhere Overland says it's painfully
The
obvious
first
how
question is
Brad
on
trying to get into the
fourth
jury.
page,
The way he's slithering
Judge
between
Schuger
questions screams, I have an
referring to
agenda.
You put, or you check mark the somewhat negative box. And you say her actions seem careless and without regard for possible fatal consequences, but not intentionally malicious.
That's correct.
Can you help me with what you were saying there? I think I kind of know what you're saying, but can you interpret it for me?
I would say, as I wrote, that the actions did seem careless based on what I recall from the case, from just the media coverage. They also did not seem intentional to me. There did not seem to be an intent to permanently injure or kill Mr. Wright.
Okay. Did it seem to be sort of like an accident to you? Is that how you looked at the video?
I felt it could have been an accident, yes.
Counsel.
Sidebar, you're getting into elements of the case. You guys objected to that. The state won't object to it, but the judge is going to let you know. The state of mind of the defendant is actually on trial in this case. And so their voir dire questions that get to the elements like state of mind are going to be improper. I'm guessing that's what's going on in this sidebar. We can only guess, but I think, yeah, you guys objected to this from the state just a few minutes ago. Make sure you're careful on your own questions.
And then the next question was number 3. You had a neutral impression of Mr. Wright.
That'd be correct,
Do you
yeah.
maintain that today?
Yes,
And you said you were neutral because you didn't know too much about him. Is that fair enough?
yes.
Okay. The question I want to ask you about is number 5, though. You expressed to your family and friends how absurd and terrible this incident was, especially following the death of George Floyd. Can you explain your answer to me in terms of the absurdity of the situation?
I felt and still feel that Officer Potter's actions were careless or could have been quite careless, and that I felt it, at least I was more on edge about police behavior and my own behavior in regards to the conversation we were having as a culture. And it felt unfortunate and somewhat careless that the actions occurred.
Well, would you agree that and I think the court has asked you this, that she's presumed innocent
Yes, of course.
of the allegation? You would agree with that and embrace the concept?
Yes.
Is the concept of a presumption of innocence consistent or inconsistent with your thought that the incident was absurd?
Consistent.
How so?
I felt that my perception at the time of the incident made the incident feel absurd. However, I'm open to that being changed, very much so. And in the context of a trial, I am absolutely unwilling to function with the presumption of innocent until proven guilty.
This is still going on?
And you also engaged in the protest, or at least you visited the George Floyd site at 38th in Chicago, it indicates here, am I right?
That's correct. I visited once closer to the events of George Floyd's murder, and I visited later when a friend came into town. My protest activity, I went once to the protest on Lake Street.
When?
It was probably a weekend morning after things had kind of hit the fan for the first night, and I went with my mother and sister to help whatever the cleanup was, and then stayed for some of the protest after.
How many protests have you been to?
Just the one.
Sure. Yeah. Shocker. Shocker. She's a protesting leftist. As if the way she answered questions didn't give it away.
Can you talk about the racial disparities in law enforcement as well?
Yes.
Okay. The question in this case is whether you would be biased in listening to the evidence that Officer Potter's white.
No, I don't think I would be.
Mr. Wright is black.
Correct.
And does that racial composition of the case, a disparity for you, would that impact on how you would look at the case? And I'm not being insulting to ask you about that, but you can give me your answers here. I want to ask you. Okay?
Sure. I mean, one of my degrees is in public health, and so I have a pretty good understanding, I like to think, of how racial disparity and systemic racism function as both on a structural level and then how it filters down to a personal level. However, in the context of this case, this is an individual case rather than a systemic or disparity related
Yeah, no,
So I
sure.
think for an individual case, that doesn't really apply.
Police shooting a black guy, that has nothing to do with systemic racism or the entire fucking narrative about it. Come on. Come on. Come on, stop lying, lady.
And keep going through here, just for, so I appreciate your patience.
Yeah. Ang knows she's gotta go. Come on. I mean, I don't think
One
actually
of
the court
questions
can
at,
disqualify her yet.
P7, which is the multiple choice questions here, where you had to say strongly agree, disagree, etc. You said, do you somewhat agree to the question, I support defunding the police?
I do, yes.
Could you explain that for us?
I've done some work on government budgets, municipal and federal, and it is my personal opinion that police are overfunded relative to the amount of good they can do in a community as compared to other initiatives that could be more deserving of that funding.
Would that lead you to have a slight bias against police officers, then, those who choose that as a career?
Not particularly.
You just think it's just, there's too much fat in the budget?
Yeah.
If I may use that simplistic way of talking about it. You don't question someone's decision to be a police officer, do you?
I'd question it like any other career choice.
Pardon me?
I would question it like any other career choice.
What do you mean by that?
If one of my friends wanted to become a police officer, I would ask them why and whether they felt that that was congruent with their values, as I would if they wanted to become a lawyer or a veterinarian.
Would you try to talk them out of it?
Probably not.
Really? Little pause on that answer there.
You mentioned the Japanese system. I was curious what that was.
A firearm control?
Yeah.
The Japanese have a well thought out and large federal apparatus, well, not federal, national apparatus for regulating how guns are available and used in their societies.
Far more than ours. So,
Far more.
okay. And that's the direction you'd like to take us,
Yes,
if you could.
if I could.
Towards the Japanese system?
There's a question about Blue Lives Matter on page 9.
Oh my God, the Japanese
and you
system's
say,
a
"Quote, it's not
nightmare."
about police, it's about white supremacy. Tell us about that answer.
Sure. My current line of work means I do a lot of research into disinformation and the communities that generate it.
I
And one
bet
of
you
the things
do.
that I've seen on the side of the radical right is that Blue Lives Matter is used as a calling card, as it would for white supremacy.
And then for Black Lives Matter, you indicate the organization, at least in your view, was unstable. Is that right?
Yes.
Why do you say unstable?
They've had lots of leadership changes in the past 2-3 years.
You were in Los Angeles for a while. Was that for college?
Correct.
Which college you go to?
I went to USC.
And you believe that the justice system is flawed? You do not?
Yes.
It's only flawed if you get
Yeah,
on this jury.
What do you think we should do to fix it?
If I were eligible and I could answer that question, I would be president of the United States.
Do you have a thought of what we can do to fix it?
Many.
You would not become president of the United States.
And knowing that it's a flawed system, undefined, you're still willing to be a juror in this case?
Yes, I am.
Engage in the central tenet of democracy, which is the jury trial.
Yes.
There's a couple more questions.
I'm mad that I
connection to
missed
Mr.
part of
Ellison.
this.
Of course,
This
he's
has
here in
been
the
great.
courtroom. You recognize him.
Yes, I do.
You smiled at him when you came in, I assume, right? Did you
Yeah.
recognize him?
I assume he doesn't recognize me. I met him very briefly once.
Remember, she totally didn't
you know,
care
our
about
concern
Chief
for us
Ellison's
is that-
campaign.
We're going against his office. They represent the state.
Yes.
And we were wondering if you had any bias for or against him because he's on the other side of this case.
Not at all.
No, none.
Yeah, confirm.
Yes.
Please strike this commie. Are you kidding me, Judge? Are you even kidding me? The second she said she worked on Ellison's campaign, she should have been struck. We didn't even need any questions. Insanity.
Well, thank you very much for answering my question. The defense exercises its first peremptory challenge.
Get out of here.